This story uncovers a dark and suppressed chapter from an 1841 Alabama plantation called Belle Haven. Following the sudden death of her husband, the young widow Constance Granger faces financial ruin and social pressure to relinquish control of the estate. To secure her independence and produce impossibly high cotton yields, she implements a horrifying and psychologically manipulative system. Instead of using the whip, Constance offers a twisted reward to the 23 enslaved men working her fields. Each week, the man who picks the most cotton is invited to spend Saturday night in her private quarters. This reward exploits the men's deepest, most denied human need, the desire for dignity, recognition, and to be seen as something more than property. The system works devastatingly well. Production soars by a miraculous 47% as the men, driven by this illusion of intimacy and worth, compete ferociously and push their bodies to the absolute limit. However, this competition shatters the community's social bonds, turning them against each other. The physical and psychological toll is catastrophic. Within 8 months, 17 of the men are dead, worked to death in their desperate pursuit of this reward. Constance meticulously documents the entire experiment in a secret journal, treating the men as subjects and calculating their deaths as acceptable losses. The truth is nearly suppressed by layers of lies and the power dynamics of the time. It is only exposed through the immense courage of an enslaved man, Isaac, who risks everything to reveal the scheme, and a house servant, Ruth, who confirms the journal's existence, despite facing brutal retaliation. While Constance is never legally convicted, as her crimes existed in a moral and legal grey area of the slavery system, she is ultimately forced from society. The story serves as a chilling examination of how the promise of humanity can be weaponized as a tool of exploitation, revealing that the most effective cruelty may not be brute force, but the calculated manipulation of the human spirit, the setting and the mystery. In 1841, Belle Haven Plantation in Alabama's Wilcox County records an impossible 47% surge in cotton yields. This agricultural miracle coincides with the mysterious deaths of 17 enslaved men within 8 months, a tragedy the local coroner refuses to properly document. The story, preserved in a hidden collection of letters, reveals that this prosperity was built on a foundation of psychological horror engineered by the plantation's widowed mistress. The protagonist and her precipice. Constance Granger, a 28-year-old widow, inherits Belle Haven after her husband's sudden death. She is educated, calculating, and facing immense pressure from a society that believes a woman cannot manage a plantation. Burdened with hidden debts, she knows her only path to survival is to produce a record-breaking cotton harvest to silence her critics and secure her financial independence. The twisted system. Constance devises a cruel alternative to traditional brutal overseer methods. She announces that each week, the enslaved man who picks the most cotton will be rewarded with a Saturday night in her private quarters. This offer shatters all social and racial boundaries of the antebellum South. She is not acting out of desire, but as a cold, clinical experiment in human motivation. She exploits the men's profound hunger for any scrap of dignity and recognition in a system designed to strip them of it. The devastating results. The system works with terrifying efficiency. Production numbers skyrocket as the men compete with a desperate, self-destructive frenzy. However, this new competition destroys the community's solidarity, breeding suspicion, sabotage, and infighting. The physical exertion, combined with the psychological torment of the reward, takes a lethal toll. Men work through injury and illness, literally working themselves to death for a chance to feel human, even briefly. Constance keeps a secret journal, documenting their decline and deaths as mere data points in her successful experiment. The investigation and exposure. Constance's brother-in-law, Preston, suspicious of the miraculous yields and high death rate, investigates. Meanwhile, Isaac, one of the most rewarded men, realizes from clues Constance has dropped that their deaths are premeditated, acceptable losses in her calculations. Using his secretly literate skills, he writes an anonymous letter to Preston detailing the horror. The final piece of evidence comes from Ruth, a house servant who, burdened by guilt, reveals she has hidden Constance's damning journal, which documents the entire scheme with scientific detachment. The aftermath and injustice. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the legal system of the time has no statutes to convict Constance. Her actions, while morally monstrous, exist in a perverse legal void within the framework of slavery. She is not prosecuted for murder or exploitation, but is socially ostracized for violating the racial and social codes of white womanhood. Forced by social pressure, she agrees to relinquish the plantation and leaves Alabama forever. The enslaved community is sold off and dispersed, their families broken up. Ruth suffers the promised retaliation and has her children sold away. The plantation is liquidated, and the official records obscure the true, horrifying reason for its final, booming harvest. The enduring legacy. The story of Belhaven is not one of simple brutality, but of intelligent, calculated psychological manipulation. It poses a disturbing question: was Constance Granger a uniquely evil aberration, or did she simply expose the ultimate, logical extreme of a system built on treating human beings as property? The tragedy lies in her discovery that the most effective way to control and destroy a person is not through violence, but through the weaponized promise of their own humanity.